All right, we're on lesson 19, which is multiplication and division for inequalities. So it's the same thing as our one-step equations here, but we're going to be multiplying or dividing first, okay? When we talk about inequalities, there is one piece in particular that is very different, and that is this right here that I'm going to highlight. When we multiply or divide by a negative, you have to remember to flip your symbol, okay? And our first example is going to do this. So I'm going to take my inequality and solve just like I would an equation. I've got negative 6 times x, so that means I have to divide by negative 6. No biggie. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 gives me x. Now, here's where I have to remember. I'm going to flip my symbol, meaning the way it is right now, I'm just going to change the way that it's open to. So this is going to become less than or equal to, and this would be negative 4. And then we're going to check. So I'm going to plug it in. Negative 6, x is, and then I'm going to use the original, so greater than or equal to 24. And I'm going to plug in negative 4 here because it's or equal to, so I can plug that in. Negative 6 times negative 4 is 24. So 24 is greater than or equal to 24. So it checks. All right, let's try the next one. It says solve graph and check. We've got 8 times x is less than or equal to 40. So I'm going to start by drawing my line. Draw a line down where I have my symbol. And now I'm going to go through and solve. So I have 8 times x, so I have to do the opposite. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1, so they cancel. I am left with x is less than or equal to 5. So that's my answer. That tells me all my possible solutions could be 5 or anything smaller. So now I'm going to graph that on my line. So I need a circle at 5. My circle should be shaded in because 5 is included in my possible solutions and any value smaller. When I go to check, I'm going to rewrite my problem. So 8 times x is less than or equal to 40. And I have to choose a number that follows my answer. So any value less than or equal to 5. 0 is less than 5, so I'm going to plug in 0. I always choose what I would hope to be the easiest number. I know that 8 times 0 is 0, and 0 is less than 40, so that works. Let's try another one. I have d divided by 2 is greater than 7, so I'm going to take my symbol, draw a line. I have division by 2, so I have to do the opposite, which is multiplying, so times 2 on both sides. The 2's cancel. I'm left with d is greater than 14. So that's my answer. Make sure you're not changing your symbol to an equal sign. I'm going to set up my graph. So remember, the number that we got goes in the middle, so 14. And then I'm going to count up to the right, down to the left. I should have an open circle at 14 because 14 is not included, and any value greater than 14 should work as a solution. So let's do our check. Rewrite. D divided by 2 is greater than 7. And plug in. I can plug in any number larger than 14, but I cannot plug in 14. So let's plug in something that's not going to give me a decimal. So let's plug in 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8, and 8 is greater than 7, so this works. All right, next page. So just a little reminder that we talked about at the very beginning of the lesson. When we multiply or divide by a negative number, we have to make sure to flip the symbol. I'm going to solve everything the same way, but I just have to remember to do this little extra step. So let's go down and try it. Start by taking your symbol and drawing your line. So I have negative 2g is less than 10. This is negative 2 times g. Opposite of times is division. So let's divide both sides by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1, so it cancels. I'm left with g. And 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. Now remember, we just divided by a negative, so I'm going to flip my symbol. So this becomes g is greater than negative 5. I'm going to set up my number line. Negative 5 goes in the middle. Be careful, you're counting up. To the right, down to the left. I'm going to put a circle at negative 5, and it should be an open circle. And then any value greater than negative 5 should work in my solution. Let's plug it in to check. Rewrite, so negative 2g is less than 10. And I can choose any number larger than negative 5. So I'm going to choose 0. Let's do negative 2 times 0 is less than 10. 0 is indeed less than 10. Now, if I was to take my answer and if I accidentally forgot to flip it, so for some reason I'm going to put it in red, if I left it as g is less than negative 5, when I went to plug this in, what would happen is I'd end up having negative 2 times maybe negative 6. Well, negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12, so that does not work. So see how that does not check? So I can't have that solution. Okay? All right, I'm going to have you go ahead and pause the video and try number 2. So try number 2 on your own, solve, graph, and check it. When you're all set, go ahead and unpause the video and check your work. All right, so we are going to be multiplying by negative 3 on both sides. Remember, we are multiplying by a negative, so we have to change our symbol. So x is less than negative 12 should be our answer. I'm going to set up my graph, negative 12 in the middle. Count up to the right, down to the left. I'm going to have a circle on negative 12, and it should be open. And then any value less than negative 12. So pointing to the left. For your check, yours might be different than mine. Depends on what number you plug in. X divided by negative 3 is greater than 4. I'm going to plug in a value that I know nicely divides by negative 3. So I'm going to choose negative 15. Divided by negative 3. If you get a decimal answer because you plug in 13 or 14, that's fine. You just have to write that out. So negative divided by a negative is a positive, so be careful there. This is going to be positive 5. That's how I know it's greater than 4, because if I got a negative, that wouldn't work. So this checks, and we're all set. All right, that is all for this lesson. Good luck on your homework.